Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CW Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications. We've got a very special session tonight where we're going to be engaging our fleet and engineering members on the agreement. On that basis, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined this evening by Acting Assistant Secretary Carl Maden. Good evening, Carl.
Evening, Chris. Evening, everyone.
So Carl and I are very privileged to be joined by Nicola and Rosie, our BSL signers, again tonight. So we really appreciate you guys joining us as well, and hopefully the members who need that access have got it tonight and can enjoy the session just like everyone else. And of course, as a department and as a union, we think that's massively important. So what we're going to do in this session, obviously, the anticipation is that, although I can see already we've got almost 1,000 people online, which is great. The anticipation is it's not going to be as crazily busy as perhaps the Royal Mail delivery one or the overall session. Carl's going to take the chat opportunity to set the scene at the start of the briefing, give his thoughts on the elements of the agreement for our fleet and engineering members. And then, of course, the most important part, take any questions that you may have this evening. So if you are watching, if you're a branch official or if you're a fleet or engineering member and you've got a burning question, then drop it in the chat and we'll do our very best to get to you tonight. So whilst you're all doing that and you're all telling us where you're watching from, telling us, how long you've been a member of the union, etc., and we're putting those on screen, I'm going to hand over to Carl, who's going to set the scene for the evening. Over to you, Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and good evening, everyone, and thanks to those who have been able to come on and watch. We know that there are a large number of members who are at work, and we've got representatives on from their branches who will obviously feed back or feed in any questions for them. And I'm sure some people might have seen some of the other sessions, but I'm also going to go through the elements that that are generic. So I'm going to start with pay. The pay is the same as the other groups, but what's important on the pay is it's the percentage value. So it's 2.7%, and then it'll be 1% and an hour off the shorter working week. So it's not a lump sum, which for those that earn more, the actual percentage value will be less. It is the percentage value of the rate and the grade. And there's been some discussion as well, particularly within fleet and engineering grades, whether or not the full value of the shorter working week was going to flow through. The management was saying that 35 hours, once you hit that, that's not going to happen. I can confirm that both fleet and engineering grades will get the full value of the shorter working week from the 2018 agreement. So I want to start first with the engineers and what the agreement means for them. And, that is job security. We've got letter machines being removed and reduced. We know that. But the business have committed, as well as the hubs, that there will be parcel machines in every plant in mail centres where they can fit in. And for that as well, we actually have a machine moves agreement. So all change will be negotiated. That was a big thing for us. The management wanted to rip up our agreements. And not only will the change be negotiated, we will be involved from the start as fleet and engineering. Also, we've got a new engineering resource tool, which is a commitment from a previous agreement that we've got agreed in line for these revisions. And why that's important is this new resource tool has improvements in capturing workload. And the more workload that we capture, obviously, will then have a more robust approach to determining staffing levels. Better staffing levels, obviously, create jobs. Growth. I mean, this is a growth agenda. And clearly, people, we don't need to educate people on the fact that parcels have gone through the roof. Also, that within Royal Mail, they're looking at some point in the future going 24/7. They're invested in parcel machines, and therefore, they're going to need people not just to run the parcel machines, but also engineers to make sure that they're going. Any Saturdays or Sundays will not be part of duty rotas. It will be as of now. As you've got now, we've got Saturdays on rotas, Sundays are on overtime, and should management want to implement any Saturday nights, as I've said earlier, they will be negotiated, they will be agreed, and it will be by voluntary means. And for the shorter working week, there will be a revision in each of the mail centres to take the shorter working week out. And obviously, as what happens through our normal procedures, the members within that unit will have a vote on that actual revision. Also, the scan in and out, previously, they wanted to follow us all the way through the shift, no matter where we're going, for engineers as well. Clearly, that literally will be scan in, scan out, the same as all the other OPGs. For fleet, and Royal Mail recently showed their hand on where they wanted to go with fleet, because while we were negotiating the agreement, fleet announced that they wanted to make a headcount reduction. They served the legal HR1 notice for a reduction of a headcount of 45 full-time equivalent. So there was no doubt that fleet were looking at a cost-cutting exercise rather than a growth agenda. We've spun that around. The 45 headcount reduction, we're confident that if we don't get it to zero, it will be as near as damn it. And also, similar to the engineering on the pay and the shorter working week, that is also done on the percentage terms. And within fleet, they will get the full effect of the shorter working week as well. And I want to just elaborate on that. I know that managers have been saying that you do a 35.5-hour week now, and therefore to reach 35, all you get is half an hour, and then that'll be done. We can confirm that you will be getting the full value of not just this hour, but the 2 hours that are to come further down the line. We've also challenged management and said we want to bring back in-house a load of work that is done by external contracts, work that we believe that we can do. There's a lot of stuff out there, batteries, tires, breakdowns, that we are saying we want brought back in-house at this time to continue the growth agenda. So where management started this by wanting a reduction in headcount, we think that within fleet, we will actually get into a recruitment scenario by bringing this work back in-house and, with everything else. The long term, we also want to bring back in-house trailers, have all our trailers repaired in-house, whereas currently they're doing. We know that that is a longer term objective because we haven't got the setup to do that, but we are challenging the business to move towards bringing all of that in-house to secure jobs for our members. Similar to engineering, any duties, additional duties over weekends, because within Royal Mail, we know that they're going to be using vehicles longer during the day. They're going 7 till 7. They're going to be working longer and using the vehicles more over the weekends. That'll mean that there will be probably more maintenance that will be required. And similar to the engineering, any weekend duties that's going on will be, as of now, it's done on overtime. It's done on a voluntary basis. So no shifts or rotas will be changed to include mandatory attendance on that. Similar, again, to the engineering, there will be a revision to take out the hours within the workshop going forward. We also want to bring forward the green agenda. And obviously with that, there comes the training packages and upskilling required to do that. Other companies, unfortunately, are leaping ahead of Royal Mail on the green agenda. And you see Amazon yesterday I was watching the football, and Amazon were actually now doing adverts on TV about the green agenda. And Royal Mail, we need to bring forward the green agenda, and we've spoken to the company about that. One of the other important things that people might overlook within fleet and engineering within this deal is keeping Parcelforce in-house. So the company wanted to make Parcelforce a separate company. And the fact that we've defeated that, and people might say, well, what's Parcelforce got to do with fleet and engineering? Well, for a start, we have Parcelforce engineers. So, quite clearly it's important to them. But if they were to get away with making Parcelforce a separate company, there would be nothing then stopping them moving into fleet or engineering and either making them separate parts of the company or indeed outsourcing them completely. And this agreement doesn't allow for that. Keeps Royal Mail together. It's got job security. We know that for both engineering and fleet, they were looking at closing mail centres, and which in some cases could have meant relocations, unreasonable relocations for people in engineering and fleet. And within the agreement, we've got a commitment that they are not looking to reduce the estate. So all of that within the agreement is positive. It's a growth agreement. Should there need to be any change as well, we've got the commitments from the Managing the Surplus Framework Agreement, which they wanted to rip up. And, from that, we will continue to have them terms and them conditions and the great benefits that come with them. We're also similar, that's within the agreement for all the other grades. We're going to be looking at the culture that goes on around the grades, particularly, in some of the workshops of fleet and engineering, and make sure that we get the culture back to where it should be. Obviously, Chris, we think it's a great agreement. If you look at where we were this time last year, we were preparing for strike action. We were moving forward. We were looking at numbers being decimated. This is a growth agenda with job security, a fantastic pay rise, and we will be taking another step towards our achievement of the 35-hour shorter working week. So that's me setting the scene, Chris. Obviously, I'd love to be having some questions from our fleet and engineering members, and let's have a little bit of a debate. Even if people have got some concerns about the agreement, let's have them out. Let's have a chat about it, and let's talk about how we achieve getting this agreement. I'm excited about the opportunities for growth going forward, growing both these grade groups and making sure that we've got sustainable, good jobs going forward.
Thank you, Carl. That's fantastic, and a really detailed opening statement there. Hopefully, much information for our members as possible to digest there. Should also say, obviously, that the ballot papers were dispatched today. So from tomorrow, and obviously taking into account the current COVID difficulties in the postal system, but from tomorrow they'll start landing over the next few days. So keep an eye out. Make sure you open it. There's a detailed pamphlet in there from Carl and the other officers setting out exactly why you should vote yes. So straight to the questions then, Carl. We've got quite a few, so challenge you, the officers, to try and rattle through as many as we possibly can. And also, as you've just rightly said there, Carl, as a union, we don't duck a difficult one. So we've got one individual who names himself as CW Always. So great name, by the way. He says, welcome. He welcomes to the briefing for the least valued minority section of the CW. Will we finally get answers to the questions ignored at every session? So a few things before I hand that one to you, Carl. Obviously, if you have got questions, then that's what tonight is about. So put them in rather than asking a question about a question. Secondly, the fact that we're even having a session and Carl's putting himself forward and we've given you a specific session for you to answer your questions, I think there's, that's just not true. But there would be a feeling among some of our members, like, and engineering, fair to say. My brother, as you know, is an engineering member of the union, who may say, you only care about the postal deliveries, you don't really care about us, smaller sections. What would you say to that? And what does this agreement say to that accusation?
A couple of things, Chris, to answer that. I mean, the one thing that I have done during the negotiations, and probably board management silly with it, is made sure that where fleet and engineering or either should be at the table, they will be. So, I have reminded the business that fleet and engineering need to be on that. I've also been reminding the business, because I do think at times they get undervalued, about what they contribute to the business. And, we put out a little bit of a statement early on today. And the one thing that I did do in that, and most of the other stuff, is pay tribute to the members in fleet and engineering who've also worked during the COVID. I mean, I've been acting as the officer for a year now, and I know that since I've been in position, and I know with Ray previously, that we've been meeting regularly with the reps. They've had access to myself as and when, it's been required. And what we want to do is make sure that the full value of what engineers and fleet do is actually recognized by the business. Because, I do think that sometimes they get potentially forgotten and they become the add-on. Well, some of the agreements that we've got, so for example, the machine moves agreement, we've insisted that fleet and engineering are there at the beginning. So they're at the table. They've got an equal seat at the table. What generally happens is operations will go away. They'll go and do all their negotiations and then come back, and fleet and engineering won't have had a say into how that goes. Within the machine moves agreement that we've got agreed, fleet and engineering are there from the first meeting. So we've ensured that they are up front, that they are the equivalent, and they will be there as importantly as the other grades.
Thank you, Carl. Brilliant. Ian here is asking, saying Parcel Force Engineering has been told we're switching over to Royal Mail Engineering. Is there any further information regarding this, and will contracts need altering to match existing jobs, i.e. pay, conditions, etc.? That's from Ian to you, Carl.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of confusion here. So Parcel Force Engineering will stay as Parcel Force Engineering, but the main line management and the directors have switched into Royal Mail. So previously, the Royal Mail processing engineering director didn't have Parcel Force engineers under them. Under the new reorg, that's what they've done. So they've brought them all in. It's the line management of it. We haven't had any proposals for that. In fact, we've got proposals scheduled to meet as Parcel Force engineers. So I think it's more to do with the senior management and directorship, who they come under. But should anything come through, and we get approached around that, we will obviously keep our Parcel Force engineers informed.
Carl. Simon here is saying, can we bring back servicing for personal staff to fleet? This worked very well, but was told, obviously, the agreement's got many areas where we're challenging the company to grow. Is this one of them?
Yeah, and This is part of our policy, if you like, because not only is it a service to our members, even if we did employees and family, it would bring money into the business. However, what we first need to look at is if we're asking for all this extra external work to be done, brought in-house, let's see what that brings in first. But definitely, it's a term that they call auto care or friends and family. That is definitely on our agenda. And if it's not introduced now because of the other work that we want to bring back in-house, it'll definitely stay on our agenda for the near future.
Thanks, Carl. A couple of Stephen here asking a question that's been asked by a couple of members. I haven't identified whether they're fleet or engineer, and I'm sure you can pick that up from the question. But why are we using agency workers?
Well, one of the things that I've uncovered since being the acting officer, I worked in a department previously, but I was doing all the policies. But obviously, picking up the officer role, you get to do everything else, and particularly in fleet. I was, I found out the amount of work that is being done by external agencies, and that's why I feel it's important that we grab the opportunity now to bring that work back in-house. So the work that we can. So that's the work that we outsource, but we also have a number of agency staff in fleet as well. And as part of this agreement, we will not only be looking to convert the agency to permanent staff, because if we've got them in, we need them. But we will, also be looking to fill vacancies and everything where they exist. I know that there's been a recruitment ban because clearly the business were going in the direction of reducing the headcount by 45. We're confident that we'll get that as near as we can, certainly down to single figures or as close to zero as we can. And now that once we can prove that, which we believe will be in the not too distant future, we can then switch their policy into recruitment and making people permanent. The only time that we should then have agency should be for peak or covering special events when we, perhaps we might have a flu epidemic somewhere and we might need to bring in a couple of agency. But, as part of this agreement, it will be permanent staff, fully staffed, including the filling of vacancies. And if the agency are required, then they'll make them full-time.
Spot on. Thanks, Carl. You'll have to help me out with a CWU Royal Mail acronym here, my friend. But Anthony says, what about VBM? Will all plants move to that rather than be time-based maintenance? So if you want to explain what that is first.
Yeah. VBM is volume-based maintenance. And effectively what that is about frequency and how you change belts on machines. It's for engineering. VBM, yes, we will be moving to VBM, and the new engineering resource tool that I mentioned in my start, VBM, will be included as part of that. So, there's a couple of things here, that VBM being one of them, the engineering resource tool, that are from previous agreements. We've managed to fulfill them over the last sort of 6 months, and we'll be introducing them the same time as the revisions with these when we introduce the shorter working week.
Thanks, Carl. Brilliant. So we've got loads of questions, which is fantastic. Bubba here says a question from your introduction one, I think, the full value of the shorter working week, as in the time off or the hours reduced into pay. So a question about shorter working week there.
Yeah, so first of all, let me explain perhaps in a bit more detail about why the full value is important to engineering and fleet. When we talk about the shorter working week for the majority of numbers, which would be OPGs, they started on 39 hours. And to take 4 hours off that, they would come to 35. Well, engineering started on 37.5 and fleet started on 36.5. And what Rommel was saying was, once you hit 35, that's it. We've only got to give you the time off to 35. So we will be looking for the time. However, there may be occasions when either the time or the value of is a better option. But we will be looking for the time. That's the union's policy. And, we'll be looking to take the time out. Shorter working hours is what we're aiming for.
Thanks, Carl. Fantastic. So straight into another engineering one. James says, any news on the guidelines being discussed for engineering?
Yes, there's guidelines being discussed for engineering and fleet. All of what I've told you tonight are within it. Clearly, the agreement was reached the 18th of December. We've had Christmas and New Year. The last 2 weeks, we've had many discussions around it. We're exchanging drafts, but the agreement or the guidelines is going to be a national guidelines. All the negotiations will be done at a local level, James. And, as I said earlier, because it will be guidelines that allow you to get on and to reach the agreements that you need to take out the shorter working week.
Thanks, Carl. Fleet-related question from Ken here, who says, we haven't had any training on the present fleet. Will we really get proper training on Sparky vans? It's Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I mean, look, we will be looking to get everybody trained and upskilled. That hasn't been reported to me, to be fair, but look, we will make sure that all fleet mechanics are trained going forward. We're also already, talking to the business as well about what training is required when we move from petrol and diesel vans into the more green agenda vehicles around that. But I'm not sure what area Ken is from, but I'll certainly find out, and we'll pick that one up nationally.
Thank you, Carl. Brilliant. A question that's been asked by several of our engineering members is articulated well by David here. He says the engineering resource tool seems a very grey area. No details on how it affects staff, headcounts, etc. Can we, I think he says confidentially, but I think he means confidently, vote on something we know nothing about?
Right. Yes, you can. As I've said, the new engineering resource tool is from a previous agreement, and all of your senior territorial reps have been involved in it as well. In fact, they've done most of the negotiating on it. And as I say, it captures more workload than the current resourcing tool. And the more workload we capture, the more robust the jobs are going forward. So yes, and I think the first session for that was rolled out in the first 6 sites last Friday. So you will be getting the full training on the resource tool so that you totally understand it before it goes live. So, all the reps and within it, it's not something we're going to throw out there and leave at the whim of management to have all the knowledge around it. We are going out. We've got our territorial reps going out and doing the adequate training out there within each of the sites as it's being rolled out to them sites. So yes, you can vote with confidence. Thanks,
Carl. Brilliant. We've got Kevin here, a fleet member, who's saying Exeter Motor Transport Workshop, 43 years plus. Are reps on fleet going to be able to question the fleet maintenance policy as we have more experience in the university educated management team on fleet? I think, obviously you'll take that question, Carl. That wider question from the membership about, lots of elements of the agreement talk about growing the company, engagement. What role will our members have to play in the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years?
A massive part within it. I mean, we have cluster reps and we have territorial fleet reps that we meet with on a regular basis. And throughout all of that, they're engaged with our members. And I do want to give Kevin some comfort. We don't just sit in a room and allow them to bring to us their ideas, and then we go, okay, let's look at how we can implement that. And the one thing I will put up for that is their recent proposal that they wanted to do a headcount of 45, a reduction of 45 headcount. There was no science behind that. We questioned that. I put my letter out in a letter to branches, my letter to the head of fleet in a letter to branches, questioning all the bits that we felt that they'd left out. So they didn't apply growth. It was a cost-cutting agenda. They didn't include the shorter working week. They were leaving all the external work still being done by external contracts, and we've managed to pull all that together. That's not just the headquarters team. I mean, Alan Tate and Pete Concannon have done a lot of work around that, but I have to say the input has come from the wider rep network that has been fed back from the ground up. So we're fully inclusive within the department, and we intend to carry on being as inclusive as we can. So you have my commitment on that.
Fantastic. Brilliant, Carl. We've got loads and loads of questions. We've had over 2,500 people who have popped in. We've currently got across our platforms almost 1,000 watching, which is brilliant when you consider the size of the memberships we're talking about. It's brilliant to have you all with us. It's also great to see you asking so many questions. We won't be able to get to every single one. What I'm trying to do is pick out the big generic ones. If we do miss you tonight, get hold of your branch immediately, or drop the Facebook page a message, and we'll try and get someone to speak to you. Other than that, though, I'm going to carry on, Carl, because you are doing a great job at helping me play through these questions. Dave is saying, processing engineering, any talk of Sunday hours becoming part of the core hours with 24/7? It's not a shorter working week of 20 hours of mandatory Sunday hours.
The short answer to that, Dave, is no. No, they won't be, but I do want to give a little bit of an explanation, because we do have a couple of mail centres that do currently work Sundays as part of their core hours. So they will continue to do so. We also have Sunday hours on SA in a lot of mail centres that are part of the rota, and they will continue. But as for being part of the core hours, as part of being part of your 36.5 hours, soon to become 35.5, no, they won't be. And that's when I said at the start that any Saturday nights and Sundays, if you're currently doing them as overtime, you'll continue to do it. And going forward, if management want to introduce them shifts, one, it will be by agreement, and two, it will be done on overtime. However, I do want to say something. We can't be going forward and say we want all this growth and we want sustainable jobs, and then go, oh, no one's going to volunteer for weekends. Yeah, we have to ensure that we cover weekends. We know that management would love the opportunity to go to agency engineering, and trust me, if they got in through the door, they wouldn't just be used for weekends. They would be then spread into the week and reduce and undermine our current terms and conditions. So, as long as we can cover the hours, then we see it as going forward, and it will be voluntary and won't be part of your orders.
Thank you. We're back again with CW Always. It says again, are RMP and FS included in the agreement? We do see your questions, my friend. We've just got dozens and dozens. And as I said, you've already had one. So that's your second one, and we've got lots of members to get through. But we have got, Carl, quite a few people asking this same questions, if you could answer it for them.
Okay. RMPFS are ex-ROMEC, for those that may not understand where RMPFS fit. They are not part of the agreement, with the exception of the pensions, because obviously under the new pension scheme, they will come through. So that's why you may not have seen sections, although what we have been doing is keeping in touch with the RMPFS reps throughout this and making sure they understand what's been going on and what progress has been made.
Brilliant. Is asking, is it the intention of negotiating an incentive scheme bonus part of the productivity talks with fleet?
Yes, it is. The agreement does say that we can talk about incentive schemes and productivity schemes, and if should we be able to find a suitable one, then we will do. We have started productivity talks with fleet, and we will be looking at an incentive scheme and for engineering as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Carl. Roger is asking, is there a commitment to engineering apprentices going forward? Good question, Roger.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And the two Postal Technical Services Postal Executive members, Steve Johnson, Alan Tate, are passionate about as well. And yes, there's a commitment to apprentices going forward in fleet and in engineering.
Thank you. And Stephen's sort of a follow-up to that very slickly says the engineering resourcing tool will miraculously work out to be the same as the headcount as present, obviously, in his view. How will that affect apprentices?
So apprentices, as they come through and graduate, they become part of the normal workforce. So once you start off on an apprenticeship, you don't automatically become part of the workload because you've got to learn your trade. I don't think that it will miraculously form exactly the same as what we got now. That may be the case in some areas. We think the new engineering resource tool will actually bolster duties in some of the offices.
Brilliant, Carl. Malcolm's asking, what's the update on LEC vehicle trials? Very expensive vehicle. If you're a London taxi driver, around 60 grand per vehicle. Plus, there's what's the buying power of Royal Mail, because of buying power of petrol or diesel vehicles is probably less than a tenth. So a question there about some of the trials on vehicles.
Yeah, we haven't got we haven't got to the trial stage of that yet. However, we know that the green agenda vehicles, because there's a number of them, there's not just electric vehicles, going forward. That's why we want to bring the green agenda forward, because other companies are getting in front of us. So, once we evaluate the trial on that, we will put something out.
Thank you, Carl. That's great. We've got a few here. Yeah, Stephen has asked, Saturday and weekday overtime for processing engineers less than flat rate, is this going to be addressed?
Yeah, I don't know whether I should say this, being that management will probably get hold of it. But look, we understand the concerns around the processing overtime rates. There was a money put into basic pay in order that it wouldn't flow through to overtime rates. But yes, it is going to be addressed. Is it going to be addressed in this agreement? I doubt it very much, because of the situation where we are. But it is on the agenda. It's something that has come onto my radar since I've been picking up the acting officer's role, and it's definitely there for us to deal with. You're on mute, Chris.
I'm on mute. See, that's because my dog just came and barked whilst you were answering your question. That's the perils of live show, isn't it? Should I say thank you? Go on, Carl, sorry.
I was going to say Bond's allowed to ask questions as well if he wants.
Yeah, he'd probably be a lot better than me, to be honest. I wanted to say thank you to our reps, including Postal Executive members like Steve Jones, who are in the comments answering questions as well, because it makes particularly my job a lot easier, because we can sift through all who are doing that. Martin makes a point, Carl, which is the new plan insuring fleet is already being put in motion. Shouldn't we be working alongside, not behind the planning stuff?
I wasn't aware that the new planning tool was being used in Fleet, so I'm more than happy to pick that up as it happens. I've got a meeting with James Baker tomorrow morning, so I will definitely pick that up there and find out what that is. It'd be helpful, Chris, if Martin could put in the chat what area he's from. I'm sure one of the other reps will be able to pick it up. But
yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Carl. So yeah, and obviously, as we committed to in every session, anything we can't get, we'll pick up offline. We've got what have we got, Carl? We've got we got Crawford wants some more money off the negotiating. Crawford is saying, as Fleet are a separate pay bargaining unit, can we submit another pay claim in addition to the 2.7 and the 1 hour reduction, e.g. for up to 2 months shift allowance when sick? So obviously, is that pay deal final and across the board end, or is there an opening for you and the union to get back in?
No, I mean, within the original 4 pillars, Fleet were a separate bargaining unit and still are a separate bargaining unit going forward. We've took the opportunity on this one to ensure that what was what we see as an excellent pay deal in Royal Mail was going to be the same for Fleet. Why would we want to risk getting anything less? But similar to what I've said earlier, we will look at some of the benefits, if for the want of a better term, that are in other grades on their sick leave and other things in pay deals when we do the next pay deal.
Thank you, Carl. James is asking, would a smaller and medium mail centres get a packet sorting machines?
Yeah, so what we've been told, because we've pressed them on this, and we were particularly worried about when the hubs come online. So what we've been told is every mail centre will get a type of parcel sorting machine where they've got the space. They may not get all the massive ones because clearly it depends on what space you've got. But we have a commitment that where feasible, and I think I put that out in my article this afternoon, that where feasible, every mail centre will get a parcel sorting machine. And where that's good, Chris, and for our members, is Royal Mail wouldn't be making that sort of commitment if they were planning. So that does build into the job security bit as well.
Thank you, Carl. I've got 3 more questions for you, which hopefully we can get off as quickly as possible. And then I'm going to give you the opportunity to sum up where we are for the members. So the first question from one of our members is, given the increase in volumetrics of parcels, there will inevitably be an increase in vehicles in the next couple of years. Is there a plan to capture this increase in workload rather than just absorbing it? So, is there an opportunity to grow rather than members being just taking on more and more work?
Yeah, and one of the main aspects that I've been saying throughout this is it is a growth agreement. If we'd allowed Royal Mail to cut headcount, then we wouldn't have been able to do that. So, as far as absorbing the parcel work, the physical delivery of the parcel work, that will be, within the delivery offices. But as far as Fleet is concerned, yes, we will be looking, because there'll be more vehicles, we will be looking at, potentially some more shifts. However, all of that will be negotiated. We don't want Fleet or engineering to fall behind in the growth. Wherever we can capture growth, we will take that forward.
Thank you, Carl. Penultimate question, you consider like trade unionism, is are we working towards equal pay for our newer colleagues? I don't like the fact that colleagues are working along on the same job, task, shifts, etc. on less than me. Kev from the Sheffield.
Yeah, on the pay issue, clearly it won't be within this agreement, because this agreement is going out to ballot. But there are some anomalies, if you want to call them that, on both pay, in both Fleet and engineering, that we will be looking at when we go into the next pay bargaining rounds. And clearly then what people need to understand is them agreements, though, may look different than the read across in other groups of workers. And, so as long as people understand that, then we will look to do what we can going forward. And we will consult on that close to going into the next pay bargaining.
Brilliant, Carl. Thank you. And I know we've got so many questions. We're going to ask the last one now. So I'll ask you while Carl's answering that, and then I'm going to give him a chance to sum up. Let us know that you're behind the agreement. Let us know that you're proud to be a member of a union that doesn't leave anyone behind, that looks after every single member and every single section of the CWU. And we'll put the best of those comments up if we possibly can. Carl, final question to you is from Steve, who is saying, will overtime rates in engineering be renegotiated during the next round of pay talks?
The answer to that is yes. I think that's a similar to the previous answer I gave. We can look to address the differentials in the grades. However, they will not then have read across. I mean, the way that pay works, you have a pay envelope, and we can negotiate different things within it to, whatever the value is, and perhaps push the envelope a little bit further. But we will definitely, because it's one thing that has come through since I've been covering this, covering the role, is about the engineering overtime rates. And clearly we're in dispute. We're coming through a dispute. We get an agreement. That agreement's going to ballot. But for the next one, yes, we will be.
Fantastic, Carl. So all that's left to do for me, really, I've got a few thank yous at the end as standard protocol and a bit of a plug for our next session. But I thought I'd give you the opportunity, Carl, as the officer, just to, a couple of minutes perhaps to, any members out there who are a little bit unsure, getting a ballot paper over the next couple of days and next week or so. How vital is it that they back their union and they vote yes, and we can move on to the next stage with the company?
Well, it's extremely, extremely important that they vote yes. And I don't want people to get complacent about the agreement. And, a lot of people think, it's a good agreement, I don't need to vote yes for it. Raw Mill watch our ballots, and we want to get the maximum return and the maximum yes vote going through. We know that we've delivered on industrial action ballots. This agreement is a fantastic agreement. It's a fantastic agreement for fleet and engineering grades and all the other grades as well. No one's been left behind within this agreement. And what we are looking to do, this agreement actually gives us the opportunity for growth. And once you start growing, you then start looking going forward at growing more and growing more. And where I want to get to is the fact that we continually, I know we've got apprentices that come through virtually every year. I want to go wider than that we're actually recruiting from outside, because we're doing that well. The agreement is an excellent agreement, a fantastic agreement, and we would urge everyone to do it. I mean, I've been in the talks with the other officers, and I can guarantee that fleet and engineering voices have been heard. We have been at the table, and they will be going forward. And there will be. We will continue the engagement with the reps. Any anomalies that we've got within pay and everything else, and in working conditions. Culture is another thing. I'm massive on the culture bit going forward, and I'm determined to address that as well going forward. And this agreement gives us the opportunity to challenge the business, to make sure and hold them to account going forward. I'm really I believe that we've got opportunities here that we haven't had before. And, if we've got to grasp this opportunity, start growing the agreement and moving forward.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Carl. Nice message there. So I think hopefully you've convinced my brother Simon, and all the other engineering and fleet members to vote yes tonight. A job perhaps that you were more fit to do than I am. So that's a really, really good session. I want to first thank a few people. I want to thank Rosie and Nicola, our signers, who have done a fantastic job deciphering Carl and I's accents and all the acronyms we use in across Royal Mail and groups. So you've done a brilliant job. So thank you to you two. I want to thank the members who have come on tonight, because obviously without any of you, there's no sort of session to put on, and your questions were fantastic. They were detailed, and I think you can be, and I can see in the comments you're really pleased with the answers that Carl gave and the detail he was able to give you tonight. Thank Carl as well. I mean, it's not easy to come on and not see any of the questions in advance, and I think we've taken all the challenging ones as well. It's not an easy ride there. Carl's handled everything expertly, as have all the other officers on all the other sessions. So it's been a really, really good week. One more plug for me, which would be on Wednesday for our admin, customer experience and MDEC members. We're back at 7 o'clock with Andy Fury. So please join in that session. Ballot papers, as I said at the start landing from tomorrow. Carl, myself, and I think everyone else at headquarters would urge you to use your vote and to vote yes. Good night from me, and I'm sure Carl can say his own good night.
Yeah, and just before I do say good night, I want to say thanks to all our reps and members who supported the union. That we only got this agreement because the business know that you're standing with us. We wouldn't have got anywhere near this agreement if the business didn't know that you were standing behind us. So I do want to thank every member, every rep for the job you do. You've been brilliant throughout this, and you are a credit to this trade union. Thank you,
Carl.
and good night.
Good night, everyone.